Roman Reigns has dealt with some of the most dangerous people WWE has ever produced. But there may be one man he should think twice about provoking. That one man is Haku. The 67-year-old legend has returned to WWE television, and his presence could completely change the balance of power on SmackDown. Because Haku isn't simply here to stand beside his sons. He's here because family has become the most important part of this story. And if Roman Reigns makes the mistake of putting his hands on Haku's children, he may discover that the tribal chief has finally crossed a line he cannot uncross. Welcome back to WWE Spotlight. Before we go any further, hit that like button and subscribe, because this situation could become one of the most explosive family conflicts WWE has created. Now, here's what makes Haku's return so fascinating. For years, fans have viewed Haku as a legendary figure from another generation, a respected veteran, a familiar face, someone who could appear on WWE television, stand beside Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa, and then disappear. But that interpretation could completely miss the bigger picture. Haku's arrival isn't simply about nostalgia. It's about power, and more importantly, it's about protecting his family. When Haku appeared alongside his sons, his message was clear: make them fear us again. Think about those words: not respect us, not acknowledge us, fear us. That changes the entire way this storyline should be viewed, because now the question isn't simply whether Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa can become champions. The bigger question is whether Haku's family is preparing to establish its own power on SmackDown. And that brings us directly to Roman Reigns. Roman has spent years building his WWE identity around family. The bloodline became powerful because Roman positioned himself at the center of the family hierarchy. People joined him, people acknowledged him, and anyone who challenged his authority eventually faced the consequences. But Haku presents a completely different problem. He isn't coming to Roman asking for permission. He isn't trying to become another piece of Roman's bloodline. And he certainly doesn't need Roman to validate his legacy. Haku already has one. That's why his arrival on Roman's territory could be far more significant than it initially appeared. Roman has fought members of his own family. He's dealt with betrayals, power struggles, and challengers from inside the bloodline. But Haku introduces something different: an elder with his own family behind him who has no reason to fall under Roman's control. And that creates one dangerous question. What happens if Roman decides to test Haku? Imagine Roman sending a message through Tama Tonga. Imagine him confronting Tonga Loa. Or worse, imagine Roman deciding that Haku's sons are simply obstacles standing between him and control of SmackDown. That could be the moment everything explodes, because Haku's warning isn't really about championships, it's about boundaries, and that boundary is his children. That's where the title of this video becomes important. Haku dares Roman Reigns, touch my children and see. Haku isn't necessarily saying he wants to fight Roman. He's saying Roman better think very carefully before touching his family. And Roman Reigns has never been particularly good at backing away from a challenge. That's what makes this confrontation so interesting. Roman's greatest weapon has always been intimidation. He walks into a room expecting everyone to understand who has the power. But what happens when intimidation doesn't work? What happens when Haku simply looks Roman in the eyes and refuses to acknowledge his authority? That could create one of the most intense confrontations WWE could build. Picture Roman telling Haku that SmackDown is his territory. Then Haku responds with one simple message: you control your bloodline, you don't control mine. Suddenly, this isn't just a faction story. It's personal. And we've already seen how dangerous family conflicts can become in WWE. The bloodline has survived betrayals, broken alliances, and battles between relatives. Now imagine Haku's family entering that equation. What looked like a tag team storyline could suddenly become a full-scale family war. And that's the scenario fans need to watch closely. Because Haku gives WWE something Roman hasn't been able to control. A man who doesn't need Roman's championship, doesn't need his approval, and doesn't need his throne. Haku simply wants to protect his family. And someone fighting for family can be far more unpredictable than someone fighting for power. So Roman now has a choice. He can leave Haku and his sons alone, or he can attempt to establish dominance over them. And if Roman chooses the second option, he could be making the biggest mistake of this entire storyline. Because the moment Roman crosses that boundary, this stops being business. It becomes personal. So I want your prediction. Does Roman Reigns try to recruit Haku before this gets out of control? Or does Roman make the mistake of believing Haku is just another veteran he can intimidate? And most importantly, what happens if Roman actually crosses the line with Haku's family? Drop one word in the comments, because whichever direction WWE chooses, this could become much bigger than anyone expects. Roman Reigns built an empire around controlling his family. Haku has now arrived with a family of his own. And the most dangerous question isn't whether Roman can defeat Haku. It's whether Roman is willing to discover what happens when he crosses that line, because Haku has already delivered the warning. Touch his children and see what happens next. This is WWE Spotlight. Subscribe, turn on notifications, and stay locked in, because if Roman Reigns and Haku finally collide, we're breaking down every moment right here.